This is episode 384, dated Friday, November the 1st, 2024.
You are listening to the In Perspective weekly podcast with Bob Branco and Peter O'Toole.
Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to In Perspective. My name is Bob Branco, and this is episode 384, dated Friday, November the 1st, 2024. Before we continue, allow me to introduce my friend, colleague, and co-host, Peter O'Toole. Peter, how's it going?
We're doing fine. The rainy season has started here. We had our first Coos Bay thunderstorm, which means one clap of thunder, a little rain, and then the sun comes out. That's what a Coos Bay thunderstorm is. But we're getting a bunch of rain, and late fall, early winter has officially started.
Well, we're still dry here in the Northeast. There's a lot of cause for concern about brush fires, and there's been red flag warnings all over the weather. So we just have to be cautious, hoping for rain pretty soon. And it's been warm, too. Before we continue, let me thank those people who make it possible for In Perspective to be aired. We start out with Raymond Gay, our producer. Thank you for what you do. Also, our media outlets, thank you for airing us when you do. It's appreciated. And, of course, we have Jacqueline Sylvia from JS Web Solutions. Thank you very much for archiving our shows on my website. All you have to do to find them is go to www.brancoevents.com. Arrow down until you get to In Perspective Podcasts. Click on them, and you will see most of our archived programs from latest to earliest.
Merci, Jackie.
I also want to thank Stephen for hosting our show today and Brad for being our streamer. And because we are being streamed, let me give out my email address for those people who would like to send us some comments about our shows. Love to hear from listeners about what they think. That's BOBBRANCO93 Bob Branco 93. That's all one word, by the way, at gmail.com. We have back with us for another appearance on our show, author Stephen Theberge. He has written another book, and he's here to talk about it today. The name of the book is Andre's Attendant. And I read the book, and I got to tell you, Steve, I don't know if the future is going to be like you described it in the book. We'll have to wait and see, but I kind of dread it if that's the case. Welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for all the people working behind the scenes to make it possible, and thanks to ACB.
So, in your opinion, Steve, I don't want to give anything away as far as the book is concerned because I'd want people to read it as you do. Do you think that the future is going to be anything like you hinted at in the book?
I would hope we don't see what we saw in the book in 10 years, because it does take us. We never know what advancements in tech are going to happen, because part of what happened in the book is computer chips advanced tens of millions of times in speed. I think it could happen. It's more of to me, a warning about AI and androids, which we don't really have androids yet, but you never know. I mean, who thought we wouldn't have social media in even 20 years before it was a big thing? So I hope it's not as scary as the book either.
Steve, before we talk about your book, give us a general sense of who you are, sort of your background.
I went to Perkins School for the Blind. Through 1982, I was a residential student. K to 12, I went to Rhode Island College in 82. I got a bachelor's in computer science and creative writing. I've worked in computer programming in the past. Now I do a lot of accessibility testing for websites, mostly from home. I worked for the MBTA as an accessibility tester on their transportation system. I'm an avid reader of all genres. I love all kinds of music. I think I'm very eclectic, open-minded, and I just think, as bad as things are, I think there's a lot of hope for humanity, even if you have read my book.
So what prompted you to write the book? I mean, what got your attention?
Well, I was like, I've done time travel. I've done First Contact. I've done evil aliens trying to take over the earth. So I said, I'm going to write a book about androids, and I didn't. And then all of a sudden, what really prompted me to not rush it out, but all the AI stuff we hear about on the news. And it gave me a lot of ideas, and like, you can't tell the difference between this and how much AI people are afraid it's going to take over. And then of course the Android part that's an extension. Like, if we could really have an attendant, I don't want to give the whole book away, but attendants or androids used by syndicated crime people. And the idea that you can't tell a human from an android, at least not without, tearing them apart. So just the idea that we're starting to blur lines of, like AI rights for people. And I think most of the time you can tell, but it's getting really where computers are getting faster, and we're having these issues and discussions about AI and where the line should be. I think it's a tool, but I think we shouldn't rely on it for everything.
For those of you who are familiar with Consumer Vision magazine, which is my monthly publication, Steve wrote a column back in the September edition, which was done with AI. And if I didn't know any better, I would never have guessed that that's how it was done. That's amazing.
So it was written with AI. Did you edit it all? How did you use it?
There was some minor editing as far as like some of the names, but it was 99% AI. And it was that's what really, I don't know if it's scary in a way for writers. I don't think AI is going to be doing novels yet. Then I'll be scared. I don't think it can do novellas, but you have a little short clip. It comes out with very predictable responses. But yeah, that article was pretty hard to tell that was AI.
And to what extent did it sort of meld with your writing style, your voice?
Well, it just showed it was starting to use, like, I think a lot of times AI uses, tries to be like, sometimes it's like, oh, you're trying to be a fancy writer. But with my writing style, I don't usually write, I do write columns. I guess Leonard said there were a few minor errors, but that particular article was just an illustration of, and I do believe in putting disclaimers that it was AI. That's,
Which you did.
We had that discussion. So I don't write like that. I'll be honest. I was helping my friend out, and I could have come up with an article, but I said, let's see what AI comes up with. That's kind of how I would have written it. It would have been different, but I said it tells essentially his story. But everyone knew it was AI. Yep.
So for those who are curious out there, and I'm sure there are some people who are listening who are very curious, what is the process by which you feed AI the information that you want to write about in order for it to write itself?
It depends on the program, but I use a program called PI. It's on the iPhone, and it was more specifically designed for the blind. So you just tap in the text field, dictate a type, say, I'd like you to write a story about, and you give it a couple sentences and it comes back, and then you just copy and paste it out. Most of the AI apps are like that, like ChatGPT. I haven't used that in a while. You just go through the process of, entering some text and clicking on the submit, and it spits out something and you can copy it. So it's pretty simple. You just have to learn how the program is set up.
And I would assume most of the time, from what I've heard, that the artificial intelligence does its thing, but then you still want to take a look at it and make sure
that's what
you're trying to do.
My editors are like, we're not worried about losing our jobs yet. Probably won't be alive when it happens, she says. But it's like there's an app called Be My Eyes, and it has section Be My AI, and it describes photos. So it will say Be My AI, and it will describe the photo, but it's not always accurate. Like, I had a photo that had my beard cut off. It didn't tell me that. They advanced the program later, and it said, oh, the face is not fully visible. And people on Facebook was like liking it because my friends probably didn't really look at the picture, and it's like a knee-jerk reaction on social media. I like that. It wasn't horrible, but so AI, yeah, you don't want to, even human writing, you want to check. Someone sends you a story and said, you don't run with it because if there's vulgarity or you always want to double check things, like cross-reference,
So getting back to the book, who is Andre?
Andre was a character in my first 3 books. He was based on autobiographical. This is total fiction. Like we were talking about. So now in this book, he's older, and it's early 2030s is when it's supposed to take place, and he's blind, and there's a pandemic that was worse than COVID, and
Much worse.
Yes, much, much worse. 75% fatality rate. The world's population takes a dive. So he's the main character. He ends up in a wheelchair, and he needs to get an attendant, to help him with what people in wheelchairs need help with.
And the dude is blind too, as I remember. Did you say that?
Yeah, yes, he's definitely blind. Yep.
Yeah.
It's definitely in there. Yep.
And
he's also very, very wealthy. He's an entrepreneur. I mean, he's a philanthropist, and he's, so he has a lot of money, and, that he's earned over as an author. He happens to be an author now. Isn't that a coincidence? But like I said, my first books were semi-autobiographical, but this is totally fiction. Like, I sure hope it's not me in 10 years. I'll tell you right now, because it's pretty dark.
Well, and plus you may not need an attendant anyway, so.
Oh yeah, well that's what I'm saying. It's just a total fictional stretch. I just like the name, so.
And the first couple of chapters of the book, it sets the scene, and part of what makes the attendant more realistic is that because of a plague or something, the population gets shrunk by quite a bit on the Earth, which has all kinds of implications.
Right.
So who is the attendant?
His name is Jared, and I don't like to give too much away. I might have already given away. Now, some people thought they knew who Andre was, like when you read it to the end, and other people, someone said, well, I knew at chapter 8 who he really was. I don't want to, you can probably guess who he was, but, you'll find out. Andre and the attendant have a very close relationship, and, it becomes, more than professional, and, like more than friends even. So they kind of, hang out with each other, and the attendant helps Andre with things he doesn't really want to help Andre with, like meeting mob bosses and making drug deals, because he wants to help his friends out. And so he becomes a little less moral, if you want to use that word, in terms of what he doesn't kill people, or because the mob bosses he meets, but he gets a little involved with some mafia people, if I can use that word. I don't know.
Yeah, mafioso, buddy.
Mafioso, or organized crime. I know I do a little stereotypical mafia stuff, but you have to do some kind of. But anyway, I just show the good and bad aliens. I mean, androids. That the androids were developed they're supposed to have Asimov's laws of robotics. They're supposed to have a code of conduct or ethics, and for some reason, the ones that organize crime use, of course, they say, well, we don't want to have android with morals if we're going to have them be hitmen or deal drugs. That's breaking the laws of, harming humanity.
So one of the things that I found interesting about the book is the sort of line between human and, what do you call it? I was going to use the word bot, but that's not the word you use.
Yeah, you could still use that word. I think it would work.
It is kind of blurry. Talk about that.
Well, even the experts in psychology and computer science, we know sentience, being sentient, if you look it up in dictionary, feeling pain, having consciousness, there's really no test for it. We know it when we see it. And, you could act like a robot, or like what we think a robot's supposed to act like. And we think we know. It's kind of like the AI. They have models which try to predict human emotions. How would a human respond to it? And, a lot of computer science first it was the Turing test. In the old days, it was like two people are at a keyboard, they can't see each other. And what if one of them isn't a human? And that's when they pass the Turing test. But now they have more advanced tests as far as like, is this a sentient, is this really a human being? But, they have all kinds of criteria. And there's really even no consensus of what it is to be a sentient being. A lot of people think, well, animals aren't sentient beings. And, there's a lot of debate there. So even when we decide what constitutes, it's like the old stories, the old Android stories or ROS stories, like having feelings. Do they really have feelings, or are they mimicking it? I mean, I know people that mimic feelings too, So where's that line? And that is,
as you said, there are, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I guess I was done. Yeah.
Okay. So there are a number of sort of scenes that happen that don't make, at least to me, it didn't make a whole lot of sense until the very end,
right.
Everything sort of comes together. Was that a sort of deliberate choice on your part to sort of confuse the reader and then sort of clear it up at the end, or at least?
I would say it's a plot twist. I mean, I guess it depends on your level of how confused you are. I hope I didn't confuse them so much that other people don't read it. There's nothing wrong with that word, but everyone likes a plot twist, and that because you don't know exactly what's going on. And yeah, I think most people like the plot twist. I mean, I don't care what genre it is. It depends though. I mean, some people just like it straight through, but yeah, I think it was definitely deliberate in terms of, having a surprise ending, I guess you could call it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it made a lot of sense. At the end, when I was reading it, I was like, okay, where's this headed? Which of course is a perfectly relevant thing for an author to do, is not to play always their cards until the end, right? I mean, that's part of what writing is about, making those kinds of calls. Talk about the relevance or the importance of religion in this book. There's the occasional Bible quote. Talk about how sort of religion factors.
Yeah, it's kind of a parody, but it's not comical, but it is. It's like, so the androids, without giving it all away, the ones that are defective or the ones that were developed by the organized crime, for some reason have defects, and they believe that they're the ones to inherit the earth. So I do put in the Bible quote from Revelation and how we shall be his bots. So that's where you got bots from, instead of how the standard Revelation quote is. So they believe, if they're sentient beings, but they believe humanity paved the way for them, even though we created androids. They said, well, that was God's plan. So we're going to take over the earth, and they considered the humans lower than animals. They would respect animals, but human beings, it's like, we got to wipe them out. You're no good. And
we have an indication of that now. We hear a lot about robotic surgery, robotic house cleaners, people are inventing robots. Even the self-driving cars, in a way, are robotics. So
yeah,
we have an indication of that now.
Yeah, but that's night and day. But you're right, Bob. It's like, where's that line going to be? Do we really want? I wouldn't mind if some bot cleaned my house, but if it's like to the point where it's going to be unable to tell from a person, that's a little much. I don't think anyone's seriously trying at this point, because we're still not anywhere near there yet, trying to develop bot androids or whatever you want to call them to be replaced or be a human-like. I mean, the surgical ones are very specifically designed for what they do. So you can't have a conversation with a surgical robot, although there was a sci-fi story with a more advanced. So those are more tools, and they're still overseen by, at least the surgical ones, and I'd be leery if there was a robot cleaning my house, because they're not quite there. I mean, even that room vacuum, it's just kind of aggravating to see this thing run around, and it's just not. I mean, I guess it's great if you don't want to vacuum your own house, and I guess eventually it figures out where it hasn't vacuumed. But yeah, but you're right. It's the question of where do they really intend? No, I don't think anyone's really intending to say we're going to replace. See, that's the difference that would be scary though. If like organized crime or anything else, they said, we're going to have a human replace you. like that,
Robot.
I guess it was supposed to be Elon Musk, but I didn't say his last name. He said, well, we can build a robot in your likeness and have him go to the doctors, have him talk to your friends and have him write up your next novel and, to impress you, It's like, if that would be scary.
I heard say that they are creating robots now that can hold conversations with people. I heard that last week, I think.
Oh, they've been doing that since I saw one in the 70s on the news. It wasn't very advanced. It didn't even look human, but they are definitely, that's the whole thing with this AI, these conversations. That's what the Pi thing is supposed to be that I mentioned, having a conversation, and they're like trying to do virtual counselors and they're AI. But I saw somebody on the news, like counselor, saying, well, it can be a tool, but you should always call your counselor. It's like not a replacement. But you're right that some people are really saying, but when you have a conversation with somebody and find out later they were an android and say that's scary, and we're not there yet, but it could be prophetic. I know one of the local talk show radio says, I think it's a prophetic book, not sci-fi. It's like, well, I hope not in 10 years. But it's just to make people kind of aware of like what do we want our technology to be and to do for us. And some people are happy replacing it. It's like, I like word processors. I mean, you can't rely, we still need editors. It can help, but it's better than typing. You make one mistake and you have to type the whole sheet over again. Or you could use whiteout, I guess. But, little things like that. It's like, what level of technology are we willing to accept?
Well, it goes back to a question that I've always asked. Now, in your opinion, Steve, do you think somewhere down the road AI will affect authors at all?
I don't know. They're talking about, this isn't really about authors. They're talking about a lot of campaign stuff. They have it's even beyond authors, like artificial likenesses of people. And yeah, it's definitely going to affect, because I think a lot of writers, for whatever reason, I don't know, we can talk about the education system. They just want people wanting the easy out. It's human nature. It's like, I want to do it for me. I don't have to write. I'll have a computer write my next novel. And now that would be really interesting if like somebody had a best-selling novel and I don't know, how do you even prove it's AI? The only way I can prove that article, because I can't reproduce my steps on that article I wrote in September, is to have taken like screenshots or recorded it, the process, because, I had another, one article where I was like, can you tell which ad was created by, cause I had AI do little ad snippets for my books, because writing a novel is different than ad writing, a lot different. And people really couldn't really guess which ones were which. I mean, some of them were very obvious. Oh, that's AI, but nobody was really, for little, but yeah, novels, I think writers for now don't have to worry, but yeah, who knows at some point if it gets really, but it will take a development of computer chips we still need more power, because they say AI takes a lot of power, consumption of energy. So anything's possible. If someone comes up with a exponentially faster computer chip, anything's possible, at least on the writing side. So yeah, I'm not worried right now though, but I don't know what the future's going to bring.
You there, Peter?
I'm sorry, Bob, what's the question?
No, I didn't know if you were there or not.
I'm sorry. I got distracted for a second. Forgive me. Yeah. So thank you for that answer. Talk about the role of disability in this book. How does that fit into the narrative?
Well, that's the whole thing of having an attendant and being blind, but I also mentioned that he has, he like Andre likes to still type and all that, because he could narrate his novels to Jared, the attendant, and have him do it. So, and then he's talking about in the kitchen, like he wants to be independent. So it's basically normalizing blind people, because it wasn't that he was blind, he just happened to be blind and in a wheelchair, but he was a very successful person and a philanthropist. So the only really big part was because I mentioned, of course, access technology. In 10 years, who knows what that's going to be. But the attendant part is like, I don't know how that's going to work. Like if you're in a wheelchair, you always need something extra, then you can't do everything yourself. But the disability with all my characters is basically just like they're disabled, and part of it, I guess, is trying to educate and like saying these are just normal people. Like they have to do things differently. But I don't have it like Daredevil, like they don't have superpowers or stuff like that. They're just regular people. Yep.
So there was one chapter in the book that really puzzled me. And there is a chapter where our hero, Andre, sort of goes through a out-of-body experience. You know the chapter I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think it's 11, but.
Yeah, okay, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't want you to tell, to give away too much of the plot, but what's the relevance of that chapter? Why did you do?
I think it's kind of I guess if you looked at it in an analysis, I didn't write it thinking of it as a kind of metaphor for reality versus so what Andre's going through in the chapter is like a confusion between, is this dreaming or is this real? Because there's that blurred line. So I know what you're saying. I think authors like to sometimes do that. So it's kind of like showing, it's kind of like coming towards the end of the book. I mean, it's showing like Andre's going through some stuff, and it's like it's kind of like symbolizing the whole of his life and what's real and what's illusion and what's, human and what's not, or what's in our emotions and what's the reality.
At that point, again, he's using morphine, right, to control his pain and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
It felt like a trip. It felt like an LSD trip, actually.
Yeah, but morphine dreams can be very, so like I said, I blurred the line, but
sure.
I guess if you had experience with morphine and dreams, you would know. I didn't want to overplay it, but it is kind of like a trip. I mean, Arthur C. Clarke does that in his books, but they tie into the plot as far as so it's like and it's kind of, in my mind, it was preparing for the end chapters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well I did that, but I was kind of like tying this world and the next world, or that was kind of the premise there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very effective chapter about, his vision that he has and flying through different.
Well, he had vision. That was another thing, because as someone that is blind, and I used to have vision, I still have dreams where I can see. And it's funny.
I do too.
Yeah. But it's funny, I never could see out of my right eye. So I've never had a dream where I can see in my right eye, and I've never seen 20/20 in my dreams, because I've never seen 20/20. I can only see as well as I saw when I was legally blind in my dreams.
You'd be surprised at the number of conversations that I've had with blind people about, I'm talking people who have been totally blind all of their lives, yet the subject seems to come up all the time about, can you see in your dreams? And if you've never seen before, how do you answer that question?
Well, my answer would be probably not, because you didn't have that input. But if somebody that could never see, and someone was able to figure out how to stimulate the visual cortex and send them pictures, would they know what they were? Like if, that would give vision rehab a new name. Like if you never saw all your life, and then let's say 50 years old, they find a cure for your blindness, how are you you're going to have to learn what that all is, because you're not going to have that'll be like a trip, because you're going to have no clue what's going on, because you had no reference. See, us getting our sight back would say, oh yeah, okay, I remember. You'd almost have to learn like a baby. That's how babies learn, because they have to figure out what the visual is. Yeah. But
I didn't mean, that, again, back to the chapter, I didn't mean that this was a vision in the sense that you could see it. Andre could see during a dream, but he was sort of seeing his life.
Yeah, it is. It could be a vision in different aspects. Yeah.
Right. That's sort of the way I saw it. That he saw, sort of the various facets of his life and various different environments. And, it's a really interesting chapter.
Right.
It's a really interesting chapter. So what do you hope people get from this book? What is your sort of message about artificial intelligence? What is it that we can sort of,
I think it should just be, I don't want to scare anyone, but I think it has to be dramatic to just show people, look, this is, and not just let one day you wake up and we really do have the androids that we can't tell from humans, because we are part of the process. I mean, I know there's a lot of big companies and they have billions of dollars and they develop stuff, but we're the consumers. They can't really make us, if we don't want human android that acts like a human, or like in my book, I have those, organized crime having, like sex partners and stuff like that. It's like, do people want that? Some people probably wouldn't care, but it's just to me a wake up call and say, we shouldn't be afraid of AI, but we should just be aware that, and like I said, I definitely dramatized it, and I wouldn't think in 10 years we'll be where the book is. I would doubt it, but who knows? I'm not a betting man.
Well, and it didn't seem that I thought the book was written, say, 50 years in the future, or even more. Not that it matters, but I didn't think it was 10 years down the road. And the other thing that the book assumes is that there's another major plague that depletes the population by quite a bit, and that totally
that makes the whole suspension of disbelief in the Android development. But, and then like, it's funny, with this coming on to the elections, that 2040, a president was elected and most people didn't know they were in androids until much later. And then that's a whole other scenario, how that plays out.
It's not a pleasant future. Let's put it that way in your book.
No.
Well, we can always have faith that it'll be better than what people perceive it as. That's all we can do, really.
Right. That's kind of like what I kind of want to I don't want to be a bestseller, but I'm surprised I haven't really attracted more readers, because with AI and all that, well, no, maybe people are scared and they don't want to think about it. Like I said, I don't want to scare people. I just want an entertainment. If you're a sci-fi person, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's kind of like what you expect, more or less.
Yeah. Like I was implying, we should just pray that things don't happen the way some people are afraid that they will happen, that we'll live our lives.
Oh yeah.
And accept what happens, and none of these disasters take place.
But it is sort of a scary thing. I mean, there are deep fakes, there are, you can create fake videos of people saying things they didn't say.
Yeah, they're doing that. They're saying that about the campaign people with the foreign influence, and that there are videos that Trump never said that, and Harris never said that, or somebody that supports Harris says this, and it's all false.
I mean, and if it doesn't, it hasn't been much of a big deal for this campaign, but I would imagine down the road it really might be, and it's hard to distinguish who said what, and, did that person really say it? And it is a disturbing.
I mean, we have
potential.
trouble enough with humans.
Yeah.
Doing fake stuff. So now if we have AI, it's gonna be a battle. And they have software that's supposed to detect AI, but that's, it's like an arms race, so that, and then they say, well, I know what the software is looking for, so I'm going to change. AI is advancing, and there's different ways to skin a cat. So it's like, it reminds me of the arms race. So it's like, well, this tool isn't really, it might help you, but it might be wrong. And so you don't always know.
And the other thing I would say about it is, thinking about war, right? If somebody wanted to kill somebody, a human actually had to pull the trigger, or had to fly and drop the bomb. Yeah. And now, more and more of it's being done by drones where people are, who are controlling them are far, far away from where the act is actually taking place. And that can't be a good thing. Desensitizing violence, people were talking about that in video games in the 90s. I don't know about,
Yeah.
and it's destroying people's moral code. Well, maybe it was, but now it's,
I heard about robotic police officers. The thing with that is they can't judge. I don't think robots are at the point where they can judge situations. That's the danger too, Peter.
Well, yes, but what I'm more concerned, you're right, but what I'm more concerned about is folks who are planning these battles are more likely to bring destruction on folks that they don't like because they don't have to see the effects. They're doing it from way far away from the battlefield, as it were. And so they're distant, far distant from the results than they were, say even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And
I'd like to turn the festivities over to our participants. I'm sure we have people listening now that would like to talk to our guests. So let me just remind everybody that you're listening to In Perspective. I'm Bob Branco, and my co-host is Peter Altschul. And our guest is Stephen Theberge, author of Andre's Attendant. I'd like to turn it over to Steve Bauer to find out if there are any hands raised.
Yeah, Jane has her hand raised.
All right, Jane, welcome to the program.
I'm glad to be here. Steve, I'm a lifelong reader. I am totally blind now, mostly blind since just after my twins and my birth. But I'm glad that your vision losses to the left of center stay there. That's my political cry. I'm kidding. When I think about AI, years and years ago, I read a triple pack of books by a writer whose last name is Sawyer, and I think his first name was Robert. And they started out with www. And then maybe they were where, what. But in those books, surgically, a piece of equipment was placed behind the eyes of a young girl, allowing her to see, and she hadn't been able to see previously. And the incredibly challenging situations she addressed were compelling to me. And I kept coming back to the question, okay, if that were me, what would my bottom line be? What would and that was the first time I'd ever read a book that challenged me to think about robotics. And well, AI wasn't a concept yet. It wasn't even a twinkle in most people's eyes. Anyway, but that's always what I come back to. And so even in writing your book, and I haven't gotten to read it, but I will, to figure out where are we humans going to draw the line or get help to draw the lines and say, no, I don't want robotics to do this or AI to do that. I love a bot boy to vacuum my house.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all. I'm sure other people have things to say.
Yeah, could I respond to that?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Please. I'm listening.
Actually, they may not have called it AI. AI's been around since the 50s at least. And Isaac Asimov, if you want to read about robots, he anticipated, it was infancy, but like you were saying, Bob, about police officers and how they would have dilemmas with these moral or, ethics. But in terms of the chip in the back to gain sight, it is technology, but it's not, to me, it's in a different category. And it's like, if you have faith in your medical people, how safe is it? Do I want my sight back? I'm not going to fight. I wouldn't have a problem getting my sight back, but it's like, what lengths am I willing to go through to get it back? And it's not because I can function as a blind person. It's just a natural human thing. If you have had sight, I've had sight most of my life, even though I was always legally blind. So those are the questions we have to answer. How much do we want technology to do?
Yeah.
We love our TV remotes, and now we're all fat couch potatoes. Well,
and I'll just
many of us, not me though.
I love the technology that I have. I remember typing a 2,000 word paper and the ribbon had come out of the links on the typewriter. So the whole thing was in stencil and I refused to write it over. She'll be with me anyway.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I do dream in concepts, even though I've never seen people.
Right.
I really do have, and when I ask people, this is what I heard you moving around like in my dream.
Yeah.
It comes up. But I'm glad you're here today and I'm listening so other people will want to talk. Yeah.
Thank you,
Keep
Jane.
But I
writing.
wonder if they stimulated a blind person's brain to see, like I said, how would you know?
Well, go look at those, Robert. I'm sure it's Sawyer is his last name.
Yeah, I'll definitely look it
But
up.
they begin with www and there are three of them. So
Okay.
later. She
Thank
gets
you,
into all
Jane.
kinds of trouble. You bet.
You know what? You're talking about couch potatoes. You made reference to couch potatoes. How about these kids? How about these kids that don't play out in the yard anymore because they're hooked on their cell phones at young ages?
Yeah,
It's
that's a
terrible.
whole other show and a whole other person.
By the way, it's not just kids.
No,
I
that's
know.
what I'm saying.
I know, but it starts there. When
Well,
a mother
actually,
and a father give a kid a cell phone at age 9,
it really starts with adults. Let's be honest about that.
Parents. Yeah.
The parents role model this stuff, and then the kids take it and run with it.
Well,
You
you
know,
can't blame
and,
the kids for what their parents don't teach them or teach them, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, it's a
Steve Bauer, do we have any other raised hands at this time?
We do. Caller in area code 575.
And that would be, what is your name?
Hello,
Beth?
Beth from
Beth.
New Mexico.
Yes, Beth?
This program is very interesting. Dr. Oz did a show when he was still on TV about companion bots, or he called them like sex bots. I don't know if they could actually but they were like companions for people that really couldn't get dates or really couldn't.
I've heard about them, Beth. I've heard about them.
Yeah. And I thought it was very interesting. And I guess you could order a designer bot or whatever, and,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? With everything, all the qualities you wanted in a guy or whatever, and you didn't want, or,
Yep.
And now
those
show
things
came
exist
up that-
now, don't they? I mean, you can.
To some point, right?
I'm sorry, Steve. What'd you say?
To some point, I mean, in my book, it's like, especially in the organized crime, it's like that way if someone gets arrested for prostitution, it's like, oh, that was an android. So I don't know how real they are. I'd have to check that, Dr. Oz. But they're always working on, somebody's always working on something, and it's all about making money.
Yeah,
right?
that came out in like 2018, 2019, around there.
Yeah. Yep. Wow.
Well, and you occasionally hear news stories about these sort of companion bots that are that are substituting for the human thing, and it's already there. It may not be as advanced as.
Well, is it just a basics? Is it to satisfy a sex desire, or because they're not? I can't see a companion bot being like getting married, like we're going to marry an android, and that would be advanced. I think most of these I don't know. It's interesting. Like they're saying some people are trying to replicate that. And to me, it's like there's enough people on the earth where if we just talk to each other, we'd probably avoid a lot of these needs for something like that. I don't judge
I
anyone.
would think so too,
but yeah, I understand.
Interesting.
It is, yeah.
Well, and in your book, there is a relationship between Andre and the attendant that really, borders on romantic relationship.
It does. And that's a whole other issue too. We have these rules, between professional, and that's with humans, so yeah, where's that line? That's just human nature, sometimes people fall in love and technically they probably shouldn't be doing that, but that's human beings are human beings, and that's going to happen.
Anything else, Beth?
It almost felt.
I just think this is very interesting.
Thank you,
I'll
Beth.
have to read your book.
Yeah. The book is well worth reading.
I think this is a good opportunity to ask you, Steve, how do we get your book?
Oh, my website is DLD, that's Delta Lima Delta Books, BOOKS, .com/. And it's my full name, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, E as in Edward, P as in Patrick, H as in Henry, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy. And it's all one word, T as in Tom again, H as in Hank, E as in Edward, B as in boy, E as in Edward, R as in Ray, G as in go, and E as in Edward. So it's dldbooks.com/ my first and last name without spaces. And it gets you to all the options, buying options. You can buy it from different sources, Amazon. You can buy a laminate hardcover. You can buy soft cover. You can get it in, of course, Kindle, and it also has a link to the first book on Bard. But the Kindle books at least can be read by, the smart speakers. So Alexa was a pretty good reader for my book, I must say.
That's AI too.
Yeah, it is. AI's been around. It's just advanced. It's changed. It's, but I'm not too worried about Alexa taking over the world.
Well, and I seem to recall that Andre Saint-Germain reads to Andre, at least in parts of the book, reads.
Yeah, he reads to him. Yeah, because, Andre, yeah, and like I said, but it's just like that's kind of developing more of but there are parts of the book where Andre uses a Braille writer.
Yep.
Right.
Any other hands raised?
Yeah, we have Leonard.
Oh.
Hello, Leonard.
Hi. I was thinking, you're thinking about there's these sex dolls and so forth, and I think we've had those things in a way since time began, because we have teddy bears and we have dolls and all that kind of thing. And it's not so much what qualities are built within those figures or those objects. It's more what we want to put into them.
Right.
And then our reality is what we really want to believe. But we've got two political parties now that are coming from totally different ideas of what reality is. So,
well, that's just what someone had talked to me about, how when the androids, I have them, of course, the androids don't have to eat, androids don't have to, do natural functions, but they become so human that they would actually be, you wouldn't have as much to project. A blow up doll, it's like, yeah, you have to use a lot of imagination. But with an android having human function, basically doing what humans do in the physical sense, it takes a lot less imagination. The only element you might want is more emotional stuff. But if you're just looking for it, like you said, it depends what you want and what your projection is. Exactly.
Well,
and in your book, it's a pretty, deep relationship. They have romantic conversations, and you really don't know. And in fact, as I remember, Andre didn't ask for a bot, as it were, originally. He wanted a human as an assistant, and
right. And the company screwed it up, and it was how many years?
Yeah. He never found out until the very end, if he found out at all, actually. I can't remember if he did.
Who did it? I don't want to get too much away, but I think most people could guess it was the attendant was an android. It doesn't matter if it's a spoiler or not, because, you're going to find out sooner or later. Like I said, somebody knew when he was doing art he wasn't like he was mimicking artists, and it's like, yeah, it's obviously an android. But
Andre's Android.
Andre's Android. That would have been a good name. Too late now.
I like it.
But that's too much to give away, though. But anyway.
Well, right. It blurs the title, which is what you wanted to, us to think about. Sort of the blurring, the distinction within an android or a technology. It is a disturbing thing. And anyway, thank you.
We have about 6 minutes to go. So, was there anything else at Leonard? You all said, or?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Thank you, Leonard.
All right. Steve, anybody else with their hands raised at this time?
Not right now. No, we've gone through all the raised hands.
So let us know when something happens.
If that changes, let us know. So what are your plans for the future in the writing world?
Well, I have a 5th book out, and it's supposed to my editor was like, I want to see a sequel to this. And she's very professional, but she said, I really like that book, and I'd love to see a sequel. So I just have like 2 chapters. I'm very stuck, but I was stuck with a lot of my books. So basically this book is going to take place 100 years, because I guess I can say it if you're going to read it, that the attendant ends in 2100. So now I go forward to 100 years and you see what happens when the robots did this stuff, and how is humanity doing now? And it's going to be, I'm not sure exactly what direction I want to take in that, but it's kind of like, what if what happened at the end of Andre's Attendant did happen, and what would it be like in 100 years? And of course, that's going to be total. Andre will be gone, so I'll have all new characters.
Well, it's really an intriguing thing, because it sort of reminds me of, in some ways, Stephen King, The Stand, where you have 2 opposing groups. Without going into great detail, I don't want to totally, and sort of the evil big people and the smaller better people.
Yeah, but you couldn't read The Stand in one afternoon like you could.
That's right. No, you're right about that.
The Stand was a great book, though. Yeah,
it was a great book, but it's sort of, it has that feel to me. I have no idea how you're going to take the book, but it's a, the way the book ends, it's apocalyptic almost.
Yeah.
The book of Revelation, after all, and so what happens 100 years after that I think is a really interesting thing. Because it can go in a number of different directions.
Right. That's the hard part. And I don't know if I want to try to, I don't know, I'm kicking around a lot of like ideas like faith and religion. It's like, what does it mean to be religious? And because these androids are supposedly like, well, this is what God ordained for us. And of course they don't, they think humanity should be wiped out. So, which isn't very religious, but
Are you a Star Trek fan, Steve, by the way?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought so.
I was thinking of that Roger Corby, What Our Little Girls Made Of. They didn't know he was an android until the end, and you had no clue. When he's lost on that planet, they find him, but he was dead for 5 years, and oh, you're alive, Roger. And that was kind of, android stories go way back. I mean, Danger Will Robinson. But everyone loved the robot. He was like, so human, it's like, except he didn't look human, but yeah, it's a premise. I love Star Trek. They kicked around a lot of different ideas, but that's the closest one to my book is the, What Our Little Girls Made Of, is like androids being to that level of not knowing. Didn't you know? And then like his assistant, she's an android. Didn't you know? And there's jealousy of an android. Like, oh, she has skin warmth, and you think I had a relationship with an android? And she's like, did you? Because there's his fiance, except he's dead. So everyone sees Star Trek now. So it's not
and in your book, the bad guys do some pretty slick dealings where an android gets traded in for an android gets traded in for a human. I said it the wrong way around. And a human becomes an android, and what I'm trying to say, they substitute
the lines. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I just occurred to me, and so I've listened to you talk, is you don't talk a lot about space travel, for example. Everything is, very much connected with the Earth, but I wonder what would happen. This is just, I'm not a sci-fi guy at all, but I wonder what would happen if you somehow include a galaxy or two in here, and how
well, they had that, like, oh, what's the one? I can't think now. Oh, I'm kind of a Forbidden Planet. They had an android, and of course, The Day the Earth Stood Still, the android policeman Bob. If you've ever seen The Day the Earth Stood Still, he's a galaxy cop, and he's like, you better fall in line, because we don't like you people spreading on the galaxy, spreading war and nuclear weapons. So there could be a lot of directions to go. I don't know if I want to go that far with the android thing, but who knows? I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. I'm stuck right now, which sometimes is a good thing, because then I start saying, oh, whoa.
Well, it took me 4 or 5 years it took me 5 years to write my memoir. And sometimes you just need the space to think about how you're going to proceed. And,
right.
And It's okay. I don't like things stuck any more than you do, but it's not the end of the world. You know, you have a chance to, something will come up. These things always do.
Yeah. It's like, like I said, I'm glad I'm not like such a best-selling author, and it's like, we'll give you $2 million advance to come up with a story in 6 months. I don't think I could work that way.
Yeah.
I like the 2 million, but it's like, it's just, that's not how I write.
Of course, you could cheat and ask.
Yeah, how do I do it?
Chat GPT to write the plot.
And then it's the bestseller, and it's like, all your novels were Chat GPT or whatever.
And that could be the beginning of the end for authors.
It would be. It would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be.
Well, we have 1 minute to go, so tell us again how we can find your book as well as all of your other books.
That's DLD, that Delta Lima Delta Books, one word, .com/, my full name, which is Stephen, Stephen, no spaces, the last name T as in Tom, H, E as in Edward, B as in boy, E as in Edward, R, G as in go, and E as in Edward. So after the T is H as in Harry. So it's my full name. If you see my name, my last name on the email, just plug it in after dlbdbooks.com. First name Stephen, last name Seabird, all one word. You get all the I have online stuff I've done, online interviews and radio shows I've been on for my books. So it's all, I have my latest one from, I believe it was end of August on my local radio station.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Steve, for being with us. Good
Stephen.
luck.
Yep.
And good luck.
Thanks for having me again. Yep.
You're welcome. And good luck with any future writings that you do as well.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm Bob Branco. He's Peter Alcho. Our guest was Stephen Theberge, author of Andre's Attendant. Thank you, everybody, and go safe with God's abundant blessings. Let's hope that our future is bright as human beings. Let's put it that way. Take care, everybody.
And that the Yankees lose continually.
I won't go there. Bye-bye for now.